Okay, so I think the time is here to start. We'll start with some introductions, so there'll be still some time to everybody to join. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody during our webinar, "The Future of the eMobility Software and Market Trends for 2024." My name is Paweł Małkowiak. I'm CEO and founder of the Solid Studio. And today with me is Krzysztof. Krzysztof, would you mind saying a few words about yourself?
Yes, hello. My name is Krzysztof. I'm the head of product here at Solid Studio. I've been in the eMobility market for over 4 years now, helping our clients deliver their projects, but also overseeing the development of our suite of ready-to-use products, which we do for eMobility sector. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And just a few words about Solid Studio, why we are hosting this webinar, and to give you some clarity, if we've got anything important to share here. So from the very, very high level perspective, we are Krakow, Poland-based software development company that strictly focused on the e-mobility sector. We have been established in 2017, but since 2018, we are delivering e-mobility solutions exclusively. Currently, we are hiring over 50 IT professionals, and we are a bootstrap company. We grew organically, and we are still owned 100% via founders. In essence, what we do is that we provide software services for the top companies in the e-mobility sector, but also we have a suite of the e-mobility ready-to-use products available over SaaS or licensing. From the, let's say, future perspective, our big ambitious goal is to become a global leader in the innovative IT solutions that support energy transformation. Great, thanks. And just to go through over the agenda, what we are going to talk today is, first of all, I'll take you through the e-mobility market, the current state, and the forecast. And I'll pass the mic to Krzysztof. Krzysztof will take you through the software in the e-mobility, what are different entities, what are the business models behind them, and basically how to build your digital e-mobility ecosystem. Then he'll go into the trends, what we can expect from 2024 in the software, in the e-mobility perspective, and also as we will focus a lot on the business models that are available and will be available. Krzysztof will take you through the SaaS options, what are the pros, what are the cons, but we will also discuss owning the software. So this is where I'll take the voice back, and I'll take you through what it takes to build your own e-mobility software, what are the pros and cons, and in the end, we will try to offer a new approach, so the licensing, which combines the benefits of those two solutions. In the end, I'll take you through the brief summary of everything what we just discussed, and also we will have a short Q&A section. So feel free to leave the questions in the comment sections. I will also ask you to do so in the end of the webinar. Okay, guys, so let's discuss the e-mobility market, because this webinar is meant to set our vision for the next year and the years to come. Nevertheless, to do so, we need to understand what's the current stage of the market. If we take a look on the electric car sales, and this is the data provided via IEA, the estimation is that within this year we'll be close to selling around 14 million EVs globally, and we see a huge spike and huge growth in this sector. Of course, China is leading the way. This is very important to understand, but we can see that Europe and United States are catching up also dynamically. EV sales is one thing, but of course the public charging network needs to catch up. This is the key differentiator to actually allow the mass adoption. And by the end of 2022, there was 2.7 million public charging points worldwide, where 1/3, 900,000, were delivered within this year alone. So during the COVID times, we had a little bit slowdown on the providing public charging network, but now we are back to 50% year-over-year increase in the public charging network availability. If we take a closer look on the AC versus DC, then of course globally the AC are the more, let's say, common chargers you can find. The China is leading the way, but Europe is not far away. The Netherlands and Germany are the leaders in our market. I believe it's worth to mention that South Korea is catching up extremely quickly with AC chargers number of 70,000. When you take a look on the DC network, then I think the most striking thing is how advanced China is. So China is responsible for 90% of the all global DC chargers. Yes, this is where we are now, where we were by the end of 2022. But let's take a look of the future. And I want to emphasize the fact what we as the industry are fighting for. So by switching to EVs, and if we meet all the targets, then by the end of the decade, we'll be able to save the emission equivalent to the entire economy of Germany. So this is a huge number. And we are all working hard on a daily basis to make the energy transition happen. Of course, the EVs and the public charging network is one of the key differentiators, but there will be also other areas within the eMobility that we need to discuss and have in mind. So it's not only owning the EV, but also changing the way how we all do the transportation. So first, and this report is prepared by McKinsey, and by them, there are a few main areas of interest for the coming years. First of all, those are autonomous vehicles, but also rise of micromobility. So how we transfer around the cities, how we do the last mile transportation will be extremely important. And this is the sector that will be booming in the coming years. Also, the development of intermodal application to make the transportation as easy as possible for the end users, and also the model of owning the vehicles versus either renting or shared vehicle will take a massive role. Apart from that, we also strongly believe that AI will take an important role in this industry as in all other industries. So this is relatively, let's say, new domain, but still we need to remember to innovate all the time, and AI looks like one of the very important directions. And going back to the public charging ecosystem for the coming years, then there's not too many reliable data for the worldwide statistics. That's why I focused on the European based. And according to the Road to Zero scenario, we see that in 2025 we'll have 1.8 million public charging stations, where by the end of the decade we'll need to scale to 5 million. And going back to the subject of this webinar, we believe that next year will be a cornerstone, a backbone for the organizations to facilitate the future growth, and software will play a major role because software needs to scale together with the demand, with the network, with EV sale, and basically software will be very important factor when it comes to scaling up operations. And yes, as we are talking about the software, and now I'd like to pass the mic to Krzysztof, and Krzysztof will be able to take you through the software ecosystem.
Thank you, Paweł. Okay, so let's take a step back and describe the current ecosystem in the eMobility. What are the key players and their roles? What are the functions that they fulfill in the ecosystem, just to get a shared understanding of where we're standing at right now and what are the capabilities of the current software. So of course, the software plays an important part in the whole eMobility ecosystem, but there are a couple of distinct entities that take care of different functionalities. Like from the very high level perspective, we can differentiate between the CPO, the charge point operator, which manages the infrastructure, the EMP, the eMobility service provider, which manages the end user relations and giving them access to the charging network. And in between, we have those roaming hubs, which facilitate the connection between CPOs and EMPs. So if we take a deeper look at the core software systems for all of those entities, and starting with the CPO, we can, of course, know that the main software for CPO is the charge point management system, CPMS as we call it, which is the core system to provide the CPO with main functionalities to oversee and manage their charging infrastructure. So starting with the overview of the charging network, managing all the charging stations, the EVSEs, the connectors, making sure that the infrastructure is up and running at all times, which means having access to monitoring and observability of the infrastructure, reacting to any sorts of failures or alerts, basically to provide as high uptime as possible, but also having remote control over the charging stations. And this is crucial for when things go south, to be able to, for example, restart a charging station remotely, or sometimes it is necessary to force like stopping the charging session, for example, if the user is unable to do so themselves. Those are the core and basic functionality of the CPMS system, but of course it doesn't stop with that. There are more things which are considered to be crucial for the CPMS, such as the tariff management, defining the prices for the electricity that will be paid by the EMP and the end user, managing the ongoing charging sessions, making sure that they are delivering as much power as possible, and managing the historical CDRs, charging detail records, that are used to store the costs and the overall completed session overview, share it with external parties, and manage all of this as a history within the CPMS. And of course, there are some extra capabilities that the CPO can offer as well. And those include things like load management, either dynamic or static load management, making sure that the network is utilized fully, but also preventing any sort of grid overload, making sure that there is a balance between the charging speed for every charging station. We do have capabilities such as reporting and metrics to get an overview of how the infrastructure spot any potential issues and areas to be improved, and provide a general feeling of how well you're going with the KPIs that you have introduced for yourselves, to making sure that you are hitting those targets, and those are crucial for the ongoing development. Extra capabilities may also include things like ad hoc payment, so installing and monitoring the payment terminals on the charging stations, giving the user the possibility to pay for a charging session directly with their credit card without having to use and register within the EMP mobile application. And some extra services, and those will come into play in the upcoming years, are the external and internal integrations, like integrating with the grid or the DSO or TSO, making sure that the infrastructure reacts correctly to the signals sent by those entities, integrating with flexibility services, and making sure that it also provides a dynamic way to manage the infrastructure. But to summarize, the goal for the CPO and the CPMS software system is to provide a stable charging infrastructure with as high uptime as possible, giving the opportunity to the EV drivers to charge on those charging stations. So on the other hand, we do have the EMP, the eMobility service provider, which, as I mentioned, manages all the things that are related to the end user. So starting with, of course, user management, giving them access to the mobile application, allowing them to register the account, manage the account in the app, see the map of the charging stations, see the nearby charging stations, and manage their user profile, going to the RFID and their personal card management, making sure that there is a correct association between the RFID token that can be used to start a charging session, making sure that the user has a payment method connected, such as credit card or Google or Apple Pay wallets, making sure that they can pay through the app itself. So integrating with different payment gateways and allowing the user to freely choose the method that they want to use to pay for the charging session. But of course, they can also, like the EMP can also influence the actual cost and the tariff that the user will pay for the charging session, starting with like promotional events, offering free charging for selected users, distributing discount coupons as an advertisement or like an ongoing campaign, promotional campaign, and ending up with different payment models, such as a subscription-based model, where the user pays a flat monthly or annual fee and then gets a huge discount on the ongoing charging session prices. So in the end, the goal for the EMP system and the EMP mobile application is to provide the best EV driver experience possible, making sure that the sessions are seamless, the payments work well, and overall look and feel for the EMP mobile application. And the final entity which is present in the eMobility space are the roaming hubs. So of course, in order to provide a full experience, we need to connect the CPO and the EMP together. And this can be done in a peer-to-peer way, directly connecting the CPO to the EMP. But there are also those roaming hubs that facilitate this connection and provide benefits to both sides. If you take a look at it from the CPO perspective, connecting to the roaming hub gives you a much higher utilization because you open your network to a larger amount of connected EMPs that they also can use your charging infrastructure. And from the other side, being connected as an EMP to a roaming hub gives you competitive advantage when it comes to the offering in your application, because you can show and allow the users to charge on a much larger network by being connected to multiple CPOs. There are also like added value services that those roaming hubs provide, which gives you extra incentive to go with such connection and open your network to a wide variety and range of users. But the goal for the roaming hub is to, of course, facilitate those connections, make sure that those connections are running smoothly, and provide a way to integrate multiple CPOs and EMPs together. Of course, all of this wouldn't be possible if it weren't for the open standards. And by open standards, we usually refer to them as those protocols that allows the CPO and the EMP to connect together, but also to connect different parts of the ecosystem together. And the leading open source protocol in the eMobility space is, of course, the OCPI protocol, Open Charge Point Interface, which is the main protocol for connecting a CPO and EMP together and provide a seamless interoperability for the e-roaming connection. It provides a bi-directional communication flow, which means that both parties can initiate the call to the other side and communicate together with the common use cases for exchanging data and also facilitating the user flows for a charging session itself. And it provides a way to connect it via a peer-to-peer connection, a direct connection, or to a peer-to-hub connection as well. So the OCPI is the leading protocol, but if you want to connect to HubCheck, which is the leading roaming platform in Europe, they have developed a proprietary protocol called OICP, Open Interchange Protocol, which pretty much serves the similar purpose to allow the EMP and CPO to connect to HubCheck. And it also offers pretty much the same functionality for exchanging data and facilitating the user flows. If we dive deeper into the technical details and focus on the CPO itself, there is, of course, the OCPP protocol, the Open Charge Point Protocol, which is the main protocol used to connect charging stations to the CPMS system. It also allows for bidirectional communications so that the charging station can send messages directly to the CPMS, but also the CPMS can send messages to the charging station, allowing the CPO to control and issue remote commands in that way. And it provides a way to monitor and observe the behavior for the charging stations, being able to react to any incoming failures or alerts, react on those, and as such provide a better experience to the end user. And if we talk about the internal and external integrations, there are also some open protocols in that space. For example, the Open ADR, which is the demand response protocol, which is used to send signals to turn devices off or on during periods of high demand, making sure that the network is performing as well as possible. And similarly, the OSCP, Open Smart Charging Protocol, is also used to communicate the 24-hour forecast of the grid capacity to the CPO, so that the CPO can optimize the charging profiles for the electric vehicles and prevent any grid overload and make sure that the grid is running smoothly and the electric vehicles are getting the correct power at all times. So all in all, this whole ecosystem, all of those moving parts are interconnected, and the overall goal is to create a harmonious ecosystem that is integrated together. All parts are working together to provide the best user experience and the best experience for every party involved, but also to address the forecasted demands. As Paweł showed you, the infrastructure is only going to get larger, and those pieces are prepared in such a way that they can handle those loads and also facilitate further improvements and further developments. All of that is to create a tightly integrated ecosystem. So having said that and having the shared understanding of the current software in the mobility space, let's now take a brief look at the business models that are present. And of course, we all know that the SaaS is still the leading model when it comes to distributing software in the mobility space. And it also makes sense. It makes sense to start with the SaaS provider because it offers you a quick time to market, and it's pretty much good enough for common use cases. However, we have also observed that there is a rising demand for custom tailored software. And this is because custom tailored software allows you to focus on your key selling point for your organization. It allows you to innovate in the e-mobility space and iterate on market and user feedback, adjust to user demands, and basically constantly improve your software, taking it in the direction that you want to take it in. And being in full control of the software gives you the most flexibility to address all of those points. And we have observed that the market leaders are slowly moving towards their own custom solutions because of those points that I mentioned. This is a trend that we observe in the whole e-mobility space. And if we take a deeper look at the pros and cons of SaaS solutions, of course, the quick time to market, as I mentioned, makes sense when you are starting as a new company, and it's pretty cost effective for small scale operations. By having all of those readily available integrations, it allows you to penetrate the market easily at the beginning. However, if you are thinking about a large scale and further developments, like the limited customization options with SaaS, not being sure about the security and ownership for both the functionality and the data. You're pretty much reliant on the third party to provide you with everything that you need. And finally, the scalability costs, which are only going to get higher the more you scale your operations, are the negative impacts of the SaaS-based solutions. And Paweł will talk you through a more in-depth overview later on as well. But now I want to move to the main topic of this webinar for today, which are the current trends in e-mobility software and also trends that we believe are going to happen next year. So let's start with stating the fact that a strategic approach to software is going to play a crucial role in the e-mobility sector. What I mean by strategic approach is that you should treat the software as the core of your business. You should be preparing and planning for the future, and you should be closely thinking not only about the hardware and the operations side, but also on the software side, to make sure that the software is really in line with your company's development and growth strategy, and they fulfill the goals that you have set for yourselves, not only for next year, but also for the future as well. We know that the market is constantly changing. It has been happening for the past years as well. So we believe it's going to be happening in the future, and being able to iterate and react to the market needs is going to be crucial as well. So ambitious players in the e-mobility sector are creating their own solutions, but they are also thinking about expanding beyond e-mobility itself, expanding into the whole electricity sector, integrating with more and more external parties to provide a unified and best experience for all of those users. And you should think about the software as the main tool for creating value. What I mean by value is that you can offer a unique experience, for example, but it also allows you to take a leadership position on the market and maybe even create trends by yourselves. Having a full control over software, delivering this value to the end users and customers, and innovating in this space is going to be crucial to set yourselves apart from the competition and create a distinctive advantage that allows you to scale your business for the future. And in order to achieve that, we believe that the backend migration is also going to play a crucial role in the upcoming years. As I said, the SaaS model is still the leading model on this market, but we believe that migration either from legacy SaaS to a new SaaS or between SaaS and the custom software is going to play an important role. We believe that is going to be much more common in the upcoming years. Focusing on other external integrations such as energy market and smart grid integration will allow you to be more flexible and also expand beyond the e-mobility sector itself. Data-driven analytics and decisions. There is a lot of trends in all the sectors when it comes to data analysis and data predictions and data based overall goals. And we believe it's also true for e-mobility space as well. to maximize the effectiveness and to take better decisions. Like you can imagine, by analyzing the data that you currently have for your infrastructure, you can optimize and increase the utilization for the charging stations, or you can use this data to find the best spot to install a new charging station in. All of those, we believe, will be further enhanced by using AI-based models, which is also going to be increasingly popular in the upcoming years. When it comes to the EMP side, we believe that focusing fully on the user is going to be the important factor. And what I mean by that is to be able to provide a seamless charging flow, a seamless payment flow, but also innovating and integrating new and upcoming protocols such as ISO 15118, and being able to use the plug and charge functionality to have like as simple as possible connection between the vehicle and the charging station, and thus increase the satisfaction for the user and the overall experience of their charging flow. And there's also one new trend that is popping up, and that is to use and create open source software. Because we all are using the same open standards, it makes sense to create and publish a reference implementation for those, so that the community itself can also benefit from that. And we can work all together to create a better future for everyone. So giving back to the community and creating open source projects, we believe also makes sense. But the key point for all of those trends, and the thing that I wanted to summarize, is that the software must support growth for your organization. And growth is not only functional, not only adding new features and expanding the capabilities of your software, but also preparing for a larger scale, making sure that you are prepared for upcoming years when it comes to increased utilizations and increased operations overhead, and expanding with external integrations, not only in the eMobility sector, but also for the other electricity sectors, and creating a unified ecosystem everywhere is going to definitely be a key point in the upcoming years as well. So that would be all for my part. I will now move back to Paweł, which will talk you through owning the software as the core value of your business.
Thank you, Krzysztof, very much. That was extremely productive. So thanks again. And let me take you through owning the software, because as Krzysztof mentioned before, the strategic approach for the software will play a crucial role, and having your own software is one of the options. And I believe the best approach to actually see how different those two models, the SaaS, the one that is actually the industry paradigm, versus of building your own software is to basically cross-check them. So Krzysztof already started discussing the SaaS. So let me just very briefly take you through it to reiterate and maybe focus on the key points. So as Krzysztof mentioned, SaaS is great, total out-of-the-box solution that you don't have to have internal IT. You don't have to depend on the third-party development agency that should build the software for you, and you don't have to have the software development know-how to make such a project successful. So those are very good points that actually speak in favor for the SaaS solutions. But I'd like to focus now what happens if you grow. If you grow as the organization, if you grow based on the number of the sockets under management or the EV drivers under management, then of course, when doing the risk assessment, everybody will realize that actually the core essence of your existence, if you are CPO or EMSP, is fully dependent on third party. So the risk created in this field is great, and for sure within a proper scale there needs to be points to address it. Also, like if everybody is using SaaS, that's very difficult to add a unique value, because yes, this is total out of the box solution, but basically it's available to everybody. Developing your implementation, let's call it this way, on top of the SaaS is extremely difficult and time consuming. So it's going to be difficult to create something unique on the market and differentiate from the competitors. Also, with the proper scale, there is more and more required the greater need for the internal digital ecosystem. So things like ERPs, CMSs, CRMs will have to play a very big role in your digital ecosystem, and ideally it should be integrated all with asset management, with the CPMS, with the EMSP, and so on and so on. With the out-of-the-box SaaS solution, it's going to be important to do so, and it will never meet 100% of the unique requirements of the company. From the delivery perspective, then of course time to market is relatively quick. It also is relatively low capital expense, because like usually, of course, it depends on the provider, but between 10 and 100,000 euros for onboarding for the CPMS or EMSP are usual rates. And then the operational costs, the more assets, either EV drivers or the sockets under management, the higher costs gonna be. On the other hand, if you take a look on the owning the software, the building the software, and then having it, then we can see that actually each of the points from the SaaS is totally opposite in owning your own software. So if we take a look on the requirements, what it takes to build the software is, first of all, we need to have internal IT department, or we need to find and depend on the third-party software agency. And it's eMobility is relatively young domain, so it's going to be quite difficult to find a software agency that mix the software development know-how together with the eMobility know-how. In both internal IT department and the software development agency, you need to have know-how how to develop software in the organization, at least from the product ownership perspective. And even with those, the delivery of the custom software brings a lot of potential risks, from the quality to the timelines perspective, meeting the budgets, and everything in between. On the other hand, if we take a look on the bright side of owning the software, then we are completely independent. So there is no third-party dependency. We had a situation in Europe when one of the leading SaaS provider was acquired via direct competition of the different CPOs. So this kind of situations can be easily can be basically not met. And with building your own software, it's very easy to add unique value. So of course, this is the matter of the implementation, but basically you can take your software into any direction you choose, it fits. Also, when building your internal digital ecosystem, basically this is your internal IT ecosystem, and you can add additional functions or systems together with this. From the time to market perspective, of course, this is way longer than buying the SaaS. So even with the extremely optimistic approach, so 6 to 12 months for delivery of the CPO or EMSP, it's much longer than buying off the shelf product, and the scope of the system will influence the timeline in a great way. For this approach, building your own software is also much more capital intensive. So it all depends on the scope as well as the timeline, but basically budgets between €500,000 to €1 million for either CPO or EMSP will be required to start and have the first versions. Nevertheless, later on, you don't have to worry about OpEx that much. So, of course, there are infrastructure costs to be carried over, as well as the SLA costs, but those will not scale linearly as in SaaS. So having in mind those two approaches, I'd like to also introduce the third one, so the licensing business model that as Solid Studio we decided to bring to the market. And we believe that licensing actually combines benefits of SaaS and your own software. In essence, is that you can buy a license to commercially use the software and manipulate it. So it makes you free from any third party. So there is no risk of depending on third party because everything is internal. Everything works on your infrastructure. So there is very clear data ownership. There is no risk of actually leaking the data with any third parties. And you are keeping the possibility to fully customize and extend the software. And it can, because of the license includes the rights to manipulate the source code, you can either do it with the internal IT department or with Solid Studio. If we take a look on one of the biggest pros of SaaS, which is the SLA, then of course having your own software enforces you to have this department in place. That's why I would like to introduce the Solid Studio plan for the SLA. So with this, we can take care of the infrastructure and development support. We can deliver the new features to the product, which automatically becomes part of the license. So this one big area is already covered. We can also meet the quick time to market as in SaaS approaches. So you can have your own digital ecosystem, eMobility ecosystem within 4 weeks. And it also stands in between SaaS and writing your own software when it comes to capital expense. So depending on the scope, depending on the modules, it will vary between 150 and 400,000 euros. But later on, if we take a look on the OPEX cost, we can save even up to 90% of it. Okay, so if you've got any more questions about this licensing solution, we believe this is a very good alternative to both SaaS and building your own software. Please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. But now going back to our webinar, let's just summarize briefly what we've discussed. So we as Solid Studio believe that 2024 is going to be a cornerstone, a backbone for the systems and for the mass adoptions that must happen to meet the 2030 goals. We also believe that software will play a strategic role in facilitated change and the scale, and more companies will focus on owning their own software. It's not going to be the scenario that everybody's got their own software. SaaS will also play an important role in this ecosystem, but we believe that there'll be a topic of the backend migrations. So what it takes, how to migrate from one legacy SaaS provider to another will be a big area of interest. Nevertheless, in either of those models, our take from this webinar is that the software is one of the key differentiators and will play a crucial role in upcoming years. If you'd like to read a little bit more about the software in the eMobility, please feel free to download our free ebook. That was actually the baseline for this webinar. So we've put there some additional content. It's available over website without and it's completely for free. So please feel free to go and get your own copy. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this webinar. We still got a few minutes for the Q&A session that we'll try to answer with Krzysztof. There is one question already about the backend migrations to actually focus on this a little bit more, what it takes, what are the main obstacles. So Krzysztof, if you can, please answer this question. And everybody, if you've got any more questions, please feel free to leave the comment. There was also the question if this webinar is going to be available later on as a recorded entity. And yes, we'll work a little bit internally, but we'll expose the link and it most likely it will be available on our YouTube channel. So Krzysztof, if you can go back to backend migration in-depth explanation, and we are waiting for any other questions.
Yeah, thank you, Paweł. That's actually a great question, and let's try to think together what are the moving parts when it comes to backend migration. We have emphasized that this is going to play a crucial part in the upcoming years. If you decide to, for example, switch from a SaaS-based solution to a custom solution. So I would say that there are three different things that you need to keep in mind. First of all, of course, is the data migration. And by data, I mean all of the database data that you already have in your current solution, like the charging station, infrastructure, historical CDRs, historical data for tariffs, etc. But this is in my opinion, is the simplest part. Data migration is done pretty much everywhere, and it involves just moving the data from one place to another. But the thing that I would consider to be the most difficult one, and that one that you should pay close attention to, is the roaming connection migrations. So if you already have some connection to the external party, being either a hub or a direct peer-to-peer connection, migrating this to a new system is going to involve like a very detailed and meticulous steps to make sure that nothing breaks in between. Like if you want to be as transparent as possible, you should be able to do it without actually informing the third party, but then it assumes that you are able to route the requests correctly under the hood and keep using the same domain, for example. But of course, it can also involve talking and communicating directly with the external party to make sure that you are all aware of this migration happening, and put together a shared effort to make it happen and make sure that it's going smoothly. This is for the roaming connection, but the transparency and like seamless transition is also going to be important for end users, for example, they don't really want or either know that you are moving into a new system. So from their perspective, it should be as transparent as possible. And the final third thing that I wanted to mention is, of course, the way that you do the migration in. There are, in my opinion, two ways to do it. You can do a big bang migration where you switch everything at once. So basically switch all the traffic and all the charging stations from the legacy system to a new system. But in this scenario, you pretty much need to have a rollback possibility in case things go south and you need to bring back the old system once again. Or alternatively, you can do an incremental migration where you switch your infrastructure, like first a couple of stations to test, then another chunk, and finally switch everything. But those type of migrations are also not that trivial, because you need to keep both systems up and running at all times and make sure that you are routing the request to the correct system under the hood. So yeah, it involves careful planning and consideration for all of those things that I mentioned. But we believe that this is actually going to be happening more and more. And yeah, it is doable, but you need to be very careful with all those moving parts.
Great, thank you, Krzysztof. And we've got one more question from Max. So the question is, what do you think about the plug and charge functionality? Will it influence the further development of mobile apps for EV drivers? Will such apps survive in the future? So this is the great question. Thank you, Max. So yes, of course, plug and charge. We do not have any doubts that it will be the standard in the next years. Of course, there is a lot of parties that needs to catch up. So OEMs, charging stations manufacturers, the software providers, and also operational teams within the CPOs and the MSPs to make it available. Of course, there are a few risks for the mass adoption. So how to make sure that contracts can be easily changed. So the EV driver can choose the contract that is used when plugging in the vehicle. And yes, this brings the question, what happens to the EMSPs? And for instance, how OEMs will play a role in there. So from my perspective, additional service, which is the EMSP, will be there, and I don't believe that there is any risks. But I think there'll be the questions if the EMSP is the only service of the company. So I can imagine the insurance companies, the banks, etc., that allows their clients with the additional suite of services, including the charging the vehicles. So in this case, they'll be the EMSP. The standalone EMSP, I think, needs to gather as much market as possible, and be in the good position to negotiate the pricing with the CPOs, have a community, and offer something else, some additional value than just plug and charge. I hope it answers the question. And yes, I think we are just approaching the end of the webinar. Thank you everybody for the participation. If you've got any questions about the software in the eMobility or about the eMobility in general, please feel free to reach us. We'll be more than happy to help you. We will also work on making this webinar available, so it's gonna be available on our YouTube channel. And yes, once more, thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.